Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Keep the Line Moving, the podcast designed to talk about leadership, life, and inspiration. I am your host, Chris Gargano, and for the first time, we took the show on the road, and we found ourselves at the home of the defending WNBA World Champion Las Vegas Aces. I was able to sit down with their president, Nikki Fargas. How's this for a resume? A state champion in high school, a national championship under legendary head coach Pat Summitt at the University of Tennessee. She then went on to coach at UCLA and LSU successfully, and she was a broadcaster. So you can understand why legendary football player Tom Brady wanted to join Mark Davis as part of this ownership group. That happened in late March. Our conversation happened a little bit earlier than that, and here it is now. I sit down with Nikki Fargas. I have to ask right off the bat, where did you just come from? A meeting about the rings, the championship rings.
Yeah, so we're extremely excited that we're able to have this chance to design rings.
Yes.
Winning the first major sports professional championship and bringing it home to the city of Las Vegas. We've Mark and I said we're going to do something really special together, and it started with his vision for this franchise and the acquisition of it, and then who he wanted to bring in as part of the family, and that's what it is. It's a family here. And when you're able to hire a Becky Hammon who commands a lot of attention but also commands a lot of respect, not only in who she is as a basketball coach, but also she should be compensated that way. And so to have an owner that realizes the importance of pay equity and the ability to say we value Becky Hammon. We were able to snag her back home and bring her back home, but snag her from the NBA, which is pretty impressive. And then under her coaching style and her philosophy and the buy-in from the players, they then went out and did what a lot of teams strive to do every year, and that's win a world championship. And she had an unbelievable staff. The play of Chelsea Gray, Asia Wilson, Kelsey Plum, all of those guys gave us the chance to have a meeting and finish up with a meeting today with the design of the championship rings.
That's so wonderful. And like all great leaders, you're deferring credit. And it all starts with you as the president and, of course, Mark Davis as the owner. So what is the culture that you have set and the goals by which you share with Becky and everybody throughout the organization? So how have you set the tone?
Well, it's been set by who I am as a woman, as a former athlete playing at the highest level collegiately. It's been set. My culture comes from Pat Summitt. It comes from my family, coming from a small little town, Oak Ridge, Tennessee. It comes from being around great people and surrounding yourself with unbelievable and people who share the same idea as you do and have the same aspirations and goal and passion because you are the company that you keep. So I've just been a sponge, and I've been fortunate to be around so many people who have influenced women in sports. And the culture is very simple. We protect the family. We protect the brand. We protect the logo. And I learned this from my husband, Justin Fargas. And then no whining and no complaining. We talk about that. Like, we want to have positive energy. We want to go into every meeting with an open mind, leave there with the say that we've learned something today, and then being prepared, be early, be on time, be ready. We just kind of live by that. And also, I think you can teach people how to work hard, but I don't know if you can get people to compete. Like, to me, there's a difference. And
Sure.
So I like that we have a basketball team that competes on every possession, but also our front office does the same. So we set goals. We're very goal-oriented front office where we want to be number one in everything that we do. We want to be number one in ticket sales. We want to be number one in, the attendance. We want to be the very best at what we can be. And by putting like-minded people in the same room, I feel like you can accomplish that a lot faster than later, and we've been able to do that.
When you went to Tennessee and started with Coach Summitt, who you alluded to, and had those great years as a volunteer, and Pat Summitt, you have quoted this again, you win with people. What were her practices like, and what was the culture there when you first came in? Was it just, wow, this is really something that I want to be a part of and I can contribute?
It very much is. It's a very disciplined culture where you understood what your role and responsibilities were because they were effectively communicated to you in the recruiting process. So it wasn't just when you stepped foot on campus that you understood. It was the things that you were sent. We were sent a playbook. We were sent the definite dozen, which is the code that we live by.
Sure.
It was 12 principles, basically, and you had to recite those. You had to know them. You had to live by them. And so I think Pat did a great job of establishing who we were going to be, how we were going to represent not only the institution, but also our teammates and the fans and the community. But she was tough. I mean, she was intense, and she demanded nothing but the best from you. And if you didn't get it right, we did it over and over and over again until literally that's when we would move on to the next thing. But it was embedded in us in how we were going to play. She had an upfront no miss policy, which is basically you sit on the front 3 rows of every classroom.
Right.
So even if you're in meetings, I'm going to a conference, you never know who's watching you. Don't go sit in the back. Go sit in the front of the conference. Be attentive. Be there to learn. Be there to network. And we learned that at a very young age. And if you miss a class, you missed a game. So the respect that we had for education was embedded in us, and she did not take that lightly. One didn't outplay the other. Education was just as important as putting 2 points on the board.
Wow. And so then you became a coach at UCLA and LSU. So did you find yourself saying, listen, I loved what Coach Summitt did, but I'm also my own individual, and I'm going to implement some, goals and rules and values that I have? If so, how did you come to your style when you coached?
Well, I was fortunate to be coached by some unbelievable women. And starting with my mom. My mom coached me when I was in 5th and 6th grade. I came through the Boys and Girls Club. I had an unbelievable coach in high school, Jill Pruden, and then I got to Tennessee with Pat Summitt. I was able to work with Hall of Famer Coach Debbie Ryan. I studied Billy Moore, who was the former head coach at UCLA, and Carolyn Peck, who had won the first black woman to win a national championship at Purdue. So I just had access to all of these great people. And then I get to UCLA, and then there's Sue Inquist, who had won like 10 titles in softball. You had Val in gymnastics, like all of the greats that have been just champions in their respectful sports. And so I just kind of was just like, hey, can we go to lunch? Can we talk? And I just was always gravitating to people that was the best. And so over the years, I just took a little bit from everybody. And it's almost like when you're, I talk about this because I'm from the South, and you're cooking. And you got your grandmom's recipe, and then she adds a little bit of this and add a little bit of that, but you can't repeat the recipe because you don't know and she doesn't even measure it. Right. It's just because you've experienced and you've done it so many times. And so I think that my style has been a combination of all of these unbelievable people that I've met. And then I knew that if let's say UCLA, because that's when I got my first head coaching job, I knew if I kept the same foundation that I was privy to participate as a player and coach, I could do something really special at UCLA. It's a matter of getting the right people, like literally on your bus. And so putting together a rock star staff. That's important. Making sure that everyone that touches your program or your company or your institution is aligned with what your goals are and what the end game is. So having constant communication with each department was equally important as talking with your team. So if media relations didn't know what was going on with players, then players need to know what's going on with the academic side. And it's just a combination of everybody working in unison. And so my style really evolved through the years of being a coach, being a basketball player, I was in commentating, I was doing commentary work, I was doing a little bit of everything, but that round basketball stayed consistent. And so that's always been the trophy, because that round basketball affords these young men and women and anyone in sports and education an opportunity to have a career and then obviously to some degree economic sustainability in their ability to not only provide for themselves but also provide for their families.
Wonderfully put. And you mentioned the broadcasting part of your
Yes.
career. And something that you've extracted that I've done my research on is storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
And what you're talking about now is the ability to craft the story of the basketball department or whatever the case may be, or the entire organization,
Right.
to other entities within the greater organization.
Mm-hmm.
So your ability to tell stories is crucial. Am I accurate in that?
Oh, you're spot on. I mean, that's what it's all about. And I love seeing and hearing about people outside the uniform or outside the line, so to speak, and that's where the real magic happens. That's why, you look at some of the greatest players. Look at Asia Wilson, and when her South Carolina acknowledged her accomplishments by putting a statue, she told the story of her grandmother.
Right.
And so it's important to know the history and not only where you come from, but also where you have aspirations of going. And we've been very fortunate here with the Aces because, Mark Davis recognizes the importance of the women who have paved the way for us to be here today. And so our alumni initiative, which is what the Raiders also are known for, but our alumni initiative was instrumental in us getting Becky Hammon because we were able to bring her back to Las Vegas and say thank you for a job well done, as well as anyone who played for the Utah Stars and or San Antonio Stars, you plus a guest, all expense paid trip to come to Vegas, have an intimate dinner with ownership, with Mark Davis, Larry Delson, meet our staff. I got an unbelievable team with me, Matt Delson, my right-hand guy, and be able to talk to the players now, even though they're a little bit older. When I played, you hear that a lot, but it still helps for this younger generation to see and hear from the older generation who paved the way. And so to have that alumni initiative, we were intentional also on bringing and hiring Jennifer Azzi,
Sure.
who played for the San Antonio Stars, as well as Natalie Williams, who also played for the San Antonio Stars, and Utah. So to have 3 former players on staff with the Aces organization is pretty impressive.
And you look at those resumes, and they're just unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
With Jennifer, Natalie, Becky, it's amazing. But the alumni initiative that you're talking about shows the depth of caring.
Yes.
For caring for people that gave all they had for the organization or organizations. So how valuable is that to you, the concept of caring as a leader, and then Mark Davis, obviously, caring for the alumni and including yourself, obviously?
Well, the alums, first off, when I would reach out to them, they thought it was a prank. They thought I literally was calling them and saying, when I said, hi, this is Nikki Fargas, and we would like to invite you, plus, who is this? That would be their response. Really? Yes. And so I was just like, no, this is for real. Or when we've sent some type of communication via email or text, and they would respond back, is this a prank? And we're like, no, this is really happening because no one was doing this. And we also wanted to celebrate the 25th anniversary of the league, which obviously Houston Comets in the 1997, but Houston Comets and the LA Sparks, they were just the 2 franchises that really put this league on the map. And again, we wanted to say thank you. We want to say, you know what, you have not been forgotten. We understand that there's been a lack of communication. We understand that there's been a lack of, just remembering you guys, but it stops here with us. And we want to make sure you guys know that you're loved and that we're here for you in any capacity that we can be. And it's just been a beautiful opportunity to get to know some of these young women. And then the first year, because it was our first year and we didn't have a huge staff, we were inviting alums every home contest. So we would have 4 or 5 alums plus their guests come in. And then this past season, we did an alumni weekend where we brought all of them back in at the same time. And so some of the alums, they hadn't seen each other since they played. And so it was like almost bringing back, almost like a family reunion to some degree.
Sure.
And so to see them bond and now they're staying in touch with each other, that's pretty special too.
And Nikki, look at the message that sends to the rest of the league. It really is, it's a byproduct of yourself, Mark Davis, and everybody, but it's also the WNBA.
Yes.
And, other franchises can take that as a model and perhaps extend invitations to their alumni. Nikki. You won the championship.
When you win at the pace that we did
Yes.
with it, it's the players. It's the players that were here. It's the nucleus that we had. And, I have to say that Bill Lambier did a phenomenal job, along with Dan Padover, who was the general manager, of assembling a nucleus. But I remember watching Asia Wilson play in high school and college, and actually tried to recruit her to come play for me at LSU. I remember recruiting Kelsey Plum to come play for me at UCLA. Drafted some of the best players. And when you can get them to buy in, and that's where I think the buy-in was clear when Becky became our next head coach, is they felt as though we can do this, but we have to do it with great selflessness. They had to be selfless, because each one of them in their own right can go and start on another team and be the one that gets all the shots or gets all the notoriety. No, they shared in that role and responsibility of winning a championship, and the leadership that it takes to do that, not only from the staff but within the team. To see a Chelsea Gray who was not recognized in different awards categories as far as or making All-Star or any of those things, but that didn't matter to her. What mattered to her was that her team won. And when you can put the team in front of your own accolades or your own individual awards, then that's when something really special happens. And that's what happened with this group. To be able to do this in such a short period of time was tremendous. And the fact that the support here just grew. I remember when I first got here, there's a lot of people that didn't know there was a WNBA team here. Mm-hmm. And so we did a lot of brand marketing and trying to get us out there and speak here and go there. And then we saw the attendance, and obviously we're coming off of COVID. We saw the attendance start to increase. And then next game, okay, we're drawing a little bit more. Next game, we're drawing a little bit more. Till towards the end of the season, 6 of our 7 games were sellouts. And so we were like, we got something really special here. Not only do we have a great basketball team, but we got a great community that's supporting this basketball team. And they are really, truly like the sixth man. If you haven't been to the game at Mick Ultra, you have to come and see these young ladies. And then the parade itself, 48 hours after winning it all, I don't know how many people, I don't know what the final count is. I'm just going to put out there like 40,000 people. I don't know if that's the right number. But it was droves of people out there celebrating us winning the championship. And it was our local community. It was kids out there and families. And that said it all. And you can see that the young girl and or young boy may say, you know what, I too want to be where Asia Wilson is on that bus, celebrating and hoisting up a trophy or championship. And so also you kind of play in the role of a role model, but also giving these young girls and boys the hope to dream big.
I love that. And we talked before coming on about being inspiring and those little girls and those little boys that watched. And there's a lot of behind-the-scenes footage online. You know, there's that series done. And you brought up the term selfless. You can see that by how the women are relating to one another and how they're passing, you know, and not just on the court, the fundamentals of basketball, but behind the scenes and the fun that they're having. And that translated selfless play on the court, selfless play behind the scenes per se. So what is the responsibility and that inspiration to those young fans and people? Watching that made me want to wish I lived here, right? I mean, it was so amazing, that run. It really was.
Yeah, and you got to see them being silly and practice, and the access that we give our media team. I think Chris and Monica do a phenomenal job with our social media. You know, John Maxwell is our PR director, and the storytelling of Katie Morgan, like they all, and again, that's the front office working as one,
right?
And understanding that it's bigger than you, and the product of all of that hard work paid off. But I love seeing the kids at the games or after, and you see Kelsey Plum go over and sign an autograph or even take a picture. Just one of the greatest gifts that you can give anybody is your time. And to be able to have these elite, you know, athletes these stars in they're stars. They're household names or becoming that. And to say, you know what, I'm not too big. I'm not too bigger than what I am to go over and at least speak to someone and give them their time. And I think that can make the difference in the young boys and young girls' lives.
This has been wonderful. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, Nikki, thanks.
All right.
And we thank Nikki very much for being on the show. My number one takeaway is this: the culture of the Aces, established by Nikki, and of course, head coach Becky Hammond and general manager Natalie Williams, all the way up to ownership and Mark Davis. It's that camaraderie. And what did Pat Summitt say? You win with people. That is what Nikki has brought to the Aces. The Aces won the world title last year, and you can see why. I want to thank the Las Vegas Raiders for hosting us and that wonderful trip out west. For our podcast producer, Paul Salazar, I am your host, Chris Gargano. Thank you so much for joining us this week and every week. And I'll tell you what, if you leave a comment or you follow us or you subscribe, you know we appreciate it. Take care, everybody. Have a great week. We'll have a great guest next week. So long.
We thank you for listening to Keep the Line Moving. We would love it if you subscribed or left a review. For more podcast episodes, check out our YouTube page. If you'd like to work with the Gargano Leadership Group, check out our website. This has been a GLG production, copyright 2023. For our podcast producer, Paul Salazar, and our marketing coordinator, Savin Narwal. Have a great week, everyone.